Bungie tried to hire this individual to become the executive producer of Halo 2. So they have that OG experience with Bungie behind closed doors, and now they've uploaded a video titled Saving Bungie. This is from Laura Fryer. Let's jump right into it. Here we go. Let's jump into this, watch this video together.
You ever wonder what happened to these people?
Bungie has been mired in controversy for the past several years. They've had tone-deaf layoffs, they've lost several key team members, and they've been caught multiple times stealing artwork. To top it off, their latest game, Marathon, isn't loved by gamers, and it's likely to fail if it continues on the current trajectory. Things aren't looking good, and I wonder if Bungie can be saved. Can they lead their team out of this crisis? The short answer is yes, they can save the studio. That doesn't mean it will happen, but with transparency and accountability, they can build back the trust that they've lost. For context, if you haven't heard, the game developer Bungie, famous for making Halo and Destiny, was recently caught stealing artwork. Here's what they had to say.
It came to our attention that an artist who worked on Marathon in the early stages of pre-production took a number of graphic elements from a graphic designer without permission or acknowledgement and placed them on a decal sheet that was then checked in 2020. The decal sheet included icons and text elements. These elements ended up in our alpha build, and there's absolutely no excuse for this oversight. And we are working on and 100% committed to our review process to ensure instances like this don't happen again on Marathon or at Bungie.
This was a good first step for fixing things. Joe, the art director, did a great job. It's very difficult to be the public face of a disaster like this. And he didn't mince words. He apologized, he said they'd fix it, and he said he'd make it right for the artist. I applaud Bungie for owning the mistake. This is the way they can start to rebuild trust. As long as they follow through and compensate the artists and fix their process, this will be a win for them long term. Every studio faces the...
That's an interesting one. I don't know if it can be a win for them long term. Like, here's the thing, you steal the art, right? And you do the right thing by fixing the situation, but I still don't think it's a win, right? It would be hard to argue that. I mean, obviously it's going to give some sort of notoriety, but it's not the type of notoriety that you really want, you know? Like, obviously now everyone has seen Marathon, now everyone has talked about Marathon, and there's this age-old expression, which is like, you know, any publicity is good publicity, even bad publicity, right? And that's just... for a game in a game studio, it's probably not the best route to go. Now, all they can do is fix it, but we've never actually seen what this looks like on the other side when the company makes all the right choices still. So to give a general like blank statement of like, will be a win because Bungie responded in the right way, I don't know. We don't know. We don't know yet. We're entering the unknown. We've never seen art theft of this scale done, and again, there's still people that say that it was more than just the actual decals, like the little images. People say like it's kind of the whole like the color palette and the scheme and the whole, you know, vibe of Anti-Real's work. It's kind of transplanted into Marathon, and whether that's fair or not, it doesn't really matter, because if people continuously perceive Marathon as a game that had its art style stolen, then people will always kind of bash the game, you know? Like, the best thing they could do is try to resolve that in a way where Anti-Real just works for them, you know? Anti-Real is an assistant art director or something. I don't know. I don't know if there is any recovery from this. We've never actually seen what it looks like on the other side of this. So we can't predict with a high degree of confidence what this will look like and if this is a win.
This problem with assets. It's not a new problem. And if you have hundreds of people working on the game, you have to be better than average at tracking where every single thing is and making sure you document it. You see, if Bungie's successful, they're going to be shipping this game 5 years from now. And the people who knew where the art assets came from will either have forgotten or they will no longer be in the company. Bungie has consistently struggled with process, so I wasn't surprised to see the issue. I saw it firsthand when I interviewed with them in the spring of 2004. They were working on Halo 2, and Jason Jones tracked me down one day in the cafeteria and said that I should come and work as their executive producer. He seemed very concerned, but I didn't realize how behind they were until I interviewed. I ended up talking to about 20 people over the course of a couple days, and Halo 2 was a train wreck from a production perspective. It was clear they were facing an epic crunch if they were going to finish the game for holiday.
Designers are here, programmers are here, environment artists.
Damn, so she goes way back. She was about to be working on Halo 2, so she's got that OG experience.
Like they haven't gone home since about April anyway, so I think
They needed two things: production support to finish the game and adjustments in their culture so they wouldn't repeat the same mistakes in the future. I was excited to help, but it didn't happen. Bungie's process of interviewing was so broken that they never actually could decide or get back to me on a decision in a timely manner. During that period, I was also speaking with Xbox Publishing. Phil Spencer managed both of the teams, and he told me I should go work with Epic on Gears of War. So I did.
Wow.
Bungie has taken the first step in fixing trust with gamers, but now they need to fix it internally with their team and Sony. This isn't the first time art has been stolen. They've had this problem for multiple years. So why will it be different this time? Someone needs to be asking hard questions when mistakes that should have been fixed are apparently still being.
Now this one is, it's fair that obviously there's other instances of art theft, but nothing to this scale. You know, I know I've seen this chart. We've even referenced this as well, where they had, you know, so one of these was an instance where an artist uploaded it to Bungie's website. So they technically, by doing so, signed the terms of service towards them. The other ones, you know, they're not as bad, basically. Like it's not good to steal art ever, of course, but you know, some of these instances, you know, don't even pale in comparison to what happened with Marathon.
Repeated. I've had to fix teams before, and here's where I would start. I would find a trusted person on the team that's competent and gets things done, someone who's production minded, and then I would ask them to go figure out why this has happened. I would put them in charge of not only fixing the actual current problem of reviewing all the assets, I would also have them fix the longer term issue. I would stand.
I know reviewing the assets shouldn't be that crazy either. I mean, I know there's a lot of assets, but like there's like Google reverse image search, right? Like you should have like really powerful tools. Maybe even Bungie has their own tools that can be even stronger than that potentially, where you could should be able to look these images up before you insert them into the game, right? It just seems like a pretty obvious thing that has to happen, because if you're trusting, say you're trusting hundreds of artists, the fact that there could be just one bad apple in there, or even two or multiple that are, you know, giving you copyright material and submitting it is, it's bad, right? It's really bad. And it makes your company look bad, even though you can try to pin it on the one bad apple. It still makes the whole company look bad, and not having that process of verifying those things is it's just not even you have so much money, you have all these employees, you have to do that at the least.
Involved because trust has been broken, and it's not the first time. This is what I call trust but verify. If you've invested $1 billion into a company, or if you happen to be a leader at Bungie who spent your lifetime building this legacy, you can't just check out when things get bad. You need to make sure that the team members that you've assigned things to are able to get what they need to fix the problems. I'd also invite a person from Sony's team to help verify the findings. There needs to be full transparency. According to this article from February of 2024, Bungie is already in a strained relationship with Sony. Given this, if I were Sony, I would have already picked a trusted person and embedded them with the Bungie team in 2024. It would create a communication channel for the team to express the things that they're seeing that would be outside their normal chain of leadership. If leadership's part of the problem, then Sony needs to know that, and they need to know how to fix it. And having this person that they can communicate with will help stop leaks. I found that one of the big reasons you get leaks on a team is when people feel like they have no other option, because otherwise things aren't going to get fixed. Sony leaders should also be having skip levels with the Bungie team. This means talking to everyone reporting to the CEO and everyone reporting to the next two levels. I'd also add in all of the key individual contributors. In my experience, competent programmers, designers, and artists will tell you what isn't working. They want the game to be great, and they are willing to tell you what isn't happening and how to fix it. This takes time, but you need to get this information from the team. Remember, everyone in the studio knows what is and isn't working. The data is all there. Gathering all those issues, prioritizing them, and fixing them is the only way the Bungie studio will survive. Everything that's brilliant and broken in Marathon was a decision made by someone, an action taken by someone. Most game companies will have a database or they'll have some type of documentation where debates over features were covered, and you can find out who the people are who understand what Marathon needs to be, and you can put them in charge of making the game better. Imagine how things might have been different for Redfall if Xbox leaders had taken time to talk to the team directly, if they had understood how desperately broken the game was. Of course, you want to look at the more objective data as well. You can tell who the competent team members are by looking at what they've contributed to the game build. You can look at player metrics from the recent alpha. You can review what the internet thinks about the game. What are gamers saying and why? All of this will start the process of understanding what is working at Bungie and what isn't. And if it's really bad, you can take this approach.
Can we review our status here, Si? Let's look at this thing from a standpoint of status. What have we got on the spacecraft that's good?
I'll get back to you, Gene.
Trying to ship when the studio's on fire isn't easy. It's like driving down the highway at 55 and trying to change a flat tire. You have to be very careful. At the same time, you can't ignore the fire. You need to start chipping away at problems, but you don't want the situation that I call pirates on a burning ship. This is where the ship is on fire and you've got the entire team on deck and they're not putting the fire out. They're sword fighting. It's very easy for a
That is true. It's what it seems like. The internal turmoil in regards to Bungie seems to be pretty strong. We obviously talked about a shift in regards to leadership. We talked about, the previous reports of Bungie devs leaving Marathon saying that the mood towards the game is poor. This is exactly where it's at. The ship's on fire. Marathon is the ship that's on fire. And then the internal devs are fighting with each other saying, we shouldn't have taken the game this way. We should have done this. We should have, that's bad. That makes it even worse.
Team descend into this kind of behavior. So any changes you make need to be approached with that in mind. Finger pointing is going to happen, and leaders should watch carefully to see who these pirates are. They may be right. They may be right in what's broken, but you have to look and see how many of them are actually trying to fix the problems and how many are fanning the flames of Bungie's destruction. Assuming Sony wants to keep Bungie alive, they probably need to delay Marathon. Then they have to show the team that they know what the problems are and they have to fix them. This transparency doesn't come without risk. It could lead to more leaks, but I don't think they have a choice. They've already lost a lot of competent people. They can't afford to lose more. This is why I suggest finding those team members that are good and put them in charge of fixing things. Competent team members already know the process and the people. The more autonomy Sony can give them, the faster they will start to rebuild trust and momentum. And momentum is critical. Even when you're working on a game that isn't in trouble, you still need to make sure you've got momentum. Bungie's momentum right now is negative. They are so unhappy. Morale is so low that they're leaking to the internet. And you've got to turn that around as quickly as possible because the good people still in the studio are likely already interviewing elsewhere. One way to fix momentum is to establish a plan with mini milestones for finishing the game. It sounds simple because it is, but it requires analysis and hard work. The team needs to create these mini milestones, things that they can definitely hit. And then when they do hit them, they need to celebrate it. And this will start to create those beats, that momentum in a positive direction. It will get everyone focused on making Marathon great. And the team needs to set these milestones because the people doing the work need to define the work. This approach might be happening. There have been reports that Marathon will move to a strategy of releasing multiple playtests. As for fixing the larger issues on the team, it will do that too. You will quickly find out who is on board with fixing the studio, who is contributing, and who isn't. Then leadership can deal with the personnel problems. They can start managing the poor performers out, and the team can focus on the game. I've used this approach with games and studios before. Early in my producer career, I was handed several games that were on fire, and my job was to figure out if they could be saved. It wasn't fun. I didn't like seeing teams fail. It's heartbreaking because it's usually good people doing their best, and it's hard to stay objective. I wanted every team to be successful, but it turns out sometimes they just can't make the game. There was one game in particular, codenamed Dragon. It was being developed in the late 90s by a company called Eclipse and was featured
Going back to the Sega Dreamcast here. Let's go.
in the Next Gen magazine. I started by playing the game, looking at all of the assets, the bugs, the design docs. I reviewed everything we had. I also started talking with the team, and I started with the Microsoft publishing team. You see, we were still learning how to make games. We were still figuring out how to partner with other game teams. We weren't perfect, and sometimes we were making the mistakes. And if I could find those mistakes and fix them on our side, that started the process of building trust with the developer. It made them happy to see that I was willing to actually fix problems on my side as much as I was willing to dive into their issues. For fixing the game itself, I asked them to make some mini milestones where we could assess progress and get some wins. The developer was continually late on builds, and most of what they delivered wasn't high quality. These milestones were really tiny. For example, please deliver one animation on one character at final quality. Take one section of one environment and make it at final quality. My hope was that this would inspire the team and create momentum for the game. Sadly, it didn't. Everything they delivered wasn't great, and it became apparent very quickly that they didn't have the talent to make this game. I remember sitting down with their leader over beers and trying to have this discussion with him. It's very difficult to tell someone that their game isn't doing well. But I did it. I sat down, and as respectfully as possible, I told him I didn't think they were going to make it with their current talent and on their current trajectory. To my surprise, he agreed completely. I appreciated his honesty. It took courage to do that. When they delivered their next milestone, they failed to hit their goals again. I called a program review with Microsoft Games leadership. I laid out my case, and I suggested that we cancel the game. It would take too much to save it. I had run down all the data. I knew I was right, but the leader told me that we couldn't cancel it. It was baffling to me, and I argued about it after the meeting too. I'm not sure why he was so stubborn. It's possible that he was friends with the founder of the company, who I believe at that point had just joined Microsoft, or maybe there was something else there. But either way, it was very strange for me to see an ex-programmer acting emotionally instead of refuting data. So I went home and I told my husband that I didn't see any other way to fix the game except to parachute in. I was going to have to move on site, in bed with the team, and see what I could do. I didn't want to do it. I doubted that it would work, but I really didn't see any other option. In the end, I didn't end up going because Microsoft decided not to pay for the latest milestone since it failed. That was effectively canceling the game because if the developer can't make payroll, they can't continue working. So the game got canceled, and it was really heartbreaking because this team cared about their game. It wasn't that they didn't want to make a great game or that they weren't focused on what players wanted. It's that they couldn't do it. And it's really sad to see people fail. So the approach I'm suggesting would start fixing Bungie, but they have to want to fix the problems, and it's possible there are barriers to doing so. Maybe Sony made a deal where they aren't allowed to embed people on site. Maybe there are performance guarantees where leaders on the team are incentivized to act against the best interests of saving the team or the game. For example, maybe Marathon has a set ship date, and if it's missed, executives won't get their big payout. I've always admired...
That would be crazy. I really think that the ship date right now is a big point of contention, something that should be delayed if they want the game to do well. But, You know, honestly, if the game ships on its current trajectory, it's going to be a disaster. There's no way it isn't.
Sony, they've done a lot of great things, but lately they've made some silly mistakes. So I can believe their contract isn't great with Bungie. I mean, look at Concord. If you looked at that game and said, yes, this is great, we should totally buy this studio, even without the game looking as ridiculous as it ended up, it's risky to buy a studio that hasn't shipped and has no track record for success. It was too early to tell if the team was good. Sure, there were individuals on the team that had a proven track record, but not as a team. And games like these, it's about the team and the system. It's not about a few people's pedigree.
They understood the value of respect, that if they treated their developers and players well, those same developers and players would forgive them when things didn't go as planned. But above all, they cared about their game.
Having trust with the gamers, the developers, and Sony is critical. It's critical to the survival of the studio, so they have to start running at these problems and fixing them as quickly as possible. Because this trust that you build is what allows you to make mistakes. It's heartbreaking for me to see this team struggling because it could be different. It could be so much better. I remember when Bungie came to Microsoft, the passion they had was incredible. They were some of the most fun and competent people I have ever worked with in the games industry. Now, obviously, most of those people are gone. I suppose it's kind of the ship of Theseus at this point. But that doesn't mean that they can't turn this around and survive. There are many problems, and the odds are stacked against them. But I think that if they have the will, if they really want to fix it, they have a great chance. And I, for one, hope they do.
All right, there it is.
Article from February.
Very cool. Very interesting stuff. I think you brought up a lot of really good points, and it's interesting seeing someone who's, you know, actually on the inside and actually works to basically course correct studios when their games are shipping and going wrong. Like, they're kind of a specialist at that and how to do that. You know, they're in the business of like diagnosing some of the problems. And Bungie's team does seem to have some issues from at least an external standpoint, you know, from all of these different leaks, right? There's various different Bungie employees currently employed and former employed speaking about how poor the work culture is behind closed doors. And I just think that when that happens, there's just no way that a company can thrive. Like, you really need the company to be, you could honestly probably have a group of average developers that aren't as talented, that are just really a cohesive unit, that probably would do better than like some of the most talented people, and then some people that are working against them or have conflicting views, you know, like that's just a recipe for disaster over and over again. So I don't know how you even fix that though when you have such a massive team, but you do need to audit your teams. You need to audit what's happening. You need to try and diagnose and fix some of these problems. And I don't know if Bungie will be able to pull it off, but if they can pull it off, it would really help for the future of for the possible future of this game, and even within Destiny 2 as well. I'm sure there's issues similar to that. You know, the one bleeds over into the other. But even all of that aside, I think that a larger issue that we've talked about previously, which is just that I think that Marathon's like overall general direction of what they tried to create is a very interesting predicament they've put themselves in. They tried to create a extraction shooter, which is a PvP game that's meant for hardcore PvP players. Not hardcore in that like it's like esports, but hardcore in that, you know, you acquire loot and you can lose it at any point in time. You're meant to acquire more meaningful loot over and over again. And they take that approach, right? They're entering that space, that genre, and then they're trying to flip it on its head and say, let's make an extraction shooter, but it's going to be like really casual, and everything is going to be frictionless, and hyper casual gamers are going to want to play an extraction shooter for the first time. And initially you think to yourself, okay, maybe there's a larger audience of people that might be interested in a sort of, you know, faux competitive experience like this, like, because it feels more competitive than your usual Call of Duty game, right? You go into a Call of Duty game, you run around a team deathmatch, you get a couple kills, you get killed, whatever, you know, you call in a kill streak, things like that. It's fun. There's no long-term investment, or, you know, there's no meaningfulness to your deaths, right? So could they, you know, get that sort of casual Call of Duty, that casual PvP experience to play over here in an extraction shooter? You know, they're kind of trying to redefine and reinvent a whole new genre, and it's ambitious. It's not necessarily a bad idea, like as a just an innate idea. Is like it's something new, right? You know, at some point in time, Fortnite decided, you know, we're going to add building, you know, these little walls and stuff to the game, and I'm sure that people thought initially, well, that's silly, that would never work, right? Well, it turned out that was one of the best ideas ever, right? And so people, you know, are going to have mixed opinions on whether or not a hyper casual extraction shooter is a good idea or not. I don't know if that's the right route to go. I think that what would be better would be maybe new elements, new things that we haven't seen before, because it still just feels like an extraction shooter. It's just watered down. And I don't think that that's the new Fortnite thing. I don't think that's like the next Fortnite 2 type of thing. It just feels like it's a whole new approach to an existing genre. And this genre has actually become the most competitive genre right now because it kind of exists in this like underbelly of gaming where it's popular, but it's not as popular, right? It's not like entering the space of like a battle royale where you have to compete against these like multi-billion-dollar companies like Fortnite, right? They just have so much money they can pump into their game. So creating a battle royale in 2025 is just insane idea, right? But creating an extraction shooter in 2025, not too bad, you know? I mean, less competition, you know, maybe more room for innovation and creativity, and it's not the worst idea ever. But it seems like now that they've given their initial approach to it, it seems like there's not particularly as big an audience as they might have initially thought. And I'm getting these numbers not just from pulling them out of my ass type of thing. I'm getting these numbers from the Marathon wish list on Steam. It's very low on the wish list. Arc Raiders is at like number 9. Marathon is at like 57. So very, very low on Steam wishlist, which just kind of implies a very, you know, there's not a lot of enthusiasm for people to buy Marathon. Whether you want to equate that to the art theft or whatever, you know, if the game was good, people probably wouldn't give a shit about the art theft, right? People, if the game was insane, people would be like, that fucking sucks, the art was stolen, but like fix that shit so we can play this, right? Like gamers are not necessarily toxic, but gamers are pretty ruthless, right? If the game was insanely good, people would be like, fix the fucking art theft thing so we can get in here and play this. This game is incredible, Bungie. You guys did it. You made Game of the Year. Ship this shit in September. Ship it earlier if you can. Like, that's the narrative that gamers would say if the game was good. Like, they don't care. You know what I'm saying? Like, the larger gaming audience, really, they're very ruthless. They don't care. So, but they're not saying that. They're not that interested. Interest in the game is pretty low, and it's just not looking good. It's not looking good. I think Sony is going to take over. I think that this project is going to get canceled, and it's going to be a rough couple years for Bungie. That's my predictions, but let me know what you think down in the comments below. Let's wrap on this one. Later.